How's it going, everyone? It is I, Anime Outlet, and this is part 6 of What If Deku Had Bond's Powers. And now, before we begin, I would just like to ask you all to please put your what if suggestions down in the comments section below. I would also like to mention I'm not going to be able to upload for the next 3 days, and once those 3 days have ended, on Monday, I would like to tell you all that I'm going to start up the daily what ifs every single day, hopefully for the rest of the year, and hopefully for even more after that. I just don't want to be taking these huge breaks each month, as I don't really like doing that, as it splits up some of the what if stories like we had with this one. I would also like to mention that the what if videos are only going to be 15 minutes long now, as just for school reasons, I'm not going to be able to make 30-minute long videos every single day. So after this video, which is going to be 30 minutes long, all the rest of the videos are going to be just about 15 minutes long or so. Some of them may be longer, but hopefully none of them will be shorter than that 15-minute mark. So now, let's begin. Right as Stain's sword was about to hit Izuku, Izuku would quickly duck under it before sweeping Stain's legs, causing him to fall over. As Stain was falling over, Izuku would jump up, grabbing Stain's face, and slam it down into the ground. With such quick and fast movements, this would knock Stain out completely unconscious. Izuku would look over behind him as he would see the quickly fading life of Ida. As he would rush over to him, Izuku would pull out some bandages supplied to him by All Might and would start to patch up Ida's wounds before he would end up calling the police. As police and ambulances would end up arriving, the ambulances would take Ida away, while Izuku would then give his statement while also showing them his temporary hero license, showing that he is a sidekick of All Might. The police would look intently at Izuku's license before looking back up at him again. I'm quite surprised. All Might hasn't had a sidekick in years. So, what made you get the sidekick role with him? Oh, I'm working as an internship with UA. Oh, he just offered me to be a sidekick as the internship with him for a week. Alright, that makes sense. I heard about UA's internships. Well, you can go now. Run along, kid, the police officer would say, letting Izuku go, as if not caring that Izuku's friend had just basically almost been put to death by some random villain. As Izuku would be walking away, his thoughts would start to drift off, wondering what would have happened if he was just a little bit sooner. Was Ida going to die, or was he just still alive? Izuku didn't know, but he was hoping that his efforts to patch up his wounds had basically saved his life. As Izuku thought, well, if Ida hadn't been patched up, he possibly could have died. However, Izuku wouldn't let this get the best of him, getting back to the dorms and falling asleep. As the next day, Izuku and Kirishima would be called down towards Recovery Girl's office. As both of them would end up walking in, Mina would end up staring at them as she was sitting down on Recovery Girl's bed. She had remained injured for the longest time, and they just didn't know what was wrong with her. As they would end up coming in, Recovery Girl would look down just with a gloom expression on her face, just leading them to Mina, saying that they were her two closest friends. I'm sorry, Kirishima and Izuku, Mina would struggling say, not barely being able to get it out of her mouth. I feel like I failed you. What do you mean, Mina? I don't understand this. Why are you acting this way? Kirishima would ask, kind of confused, wondering what was wrong with his best girlfriend at this point now. Izuku would look on at her before something would go off in his head, as Izuku would end up realizing what was wrong with her. I can't be a hero anymore. What? What do you mean? What do you mean you can't be a hero? My quirk, it doesn't work the same way as it used to. After the fight with Bakugo, my quirk, my body, it's just not as strong as it once was. Are you saying Bakugo caused permanent damage to you? Well, In a way, yes. I can't use my quirk to its fullest extent anymore. And if so, my hands will start to hurt violently for days. I don't know what to do anymore. It's funny, looking back on it now. Oh, I wanted to be a hero so bad, and now I can't. It's just so hard to believe. This can't be. We were supposed to be heroes together. The best crime-fighting duo the world has ever seen. I should have stopped that fight. I should have stopped the fight as soon as I knew something bad was gonna happen. It's okay, Kirishima. Stop being so down on yourself. While Kirishima and Mina were talking to each other, Izuku couldn't help but only stare on at them. One of his best friends had now been forced to drop out of UA just because of a stupid attack just by Bakugo during the sports festival, and Bakugo couldn't get punished for this. Sure, he was going way too hard on her. She wasn't just capable to deal with just the highest 100% of Bakugo. But still, should he have gone 100% on her? No. And now Bakugo will get off scot-free, injuring one of the students. Just a point that they're not going to be able to be a hero anymore. Not going to be able to use their quirk anymore to an extent. Izuku all just couldn't believe it. As Kirishima and Mina would continue talking, Izuku would walk up to Kirishima, patting him on the shoulder. Look, I'll let you two be. This isn't the time for me to be here, Izuku would say, walking out, as Mina would only stare at him. So would Kirishima. As Kirishima would continue talking away, Izuku would go up to meet with Toga, who was doing a training session with her internship. As Izuku would end up making it back to the dorms, Toga, who had just finished her internship on the last day, as she had been sick the first day and gotten an extra day, they would then meet up in the dorms. Look, Toga, how do I say this? You're not going to be seeing Mina in this building anymore. What do you mean, Izuku? Toga would ask, confused, wondering, and leaning in intently towards Izuku, wondering what he was talking about. Her fight with Bakugo. You know how she got insanely injured. It's just... she can't, or barely can use her quirk anymore. She just can't be a hero anymore. You're kidding, right? That just doesn't make any sense. Toga, lost for words, just couldn't talk. However, she would end up closing her eyes before they would end up flying open with a fury. Where's Bakugo? She would angrily ask Izuku. I'd say probably in his dorm room right now. Why? Don't do anything stupid that could get you expelled, Toga. I just want to have a talk with him. That's all. Toga would say. However, Izuku knew what the real reason was. However, he wouldn't really care, just patting her on the back as she would be pushed forward towards Bakugo's dorm room, as she would then fly down the halls looking for it. As she would then knock on Bakugo's dorm room, we cut to see Izuku walking with his new classmate, Meliodas. So, Meliodas, what brought you here again? So, I wanted to teach you all of the techniques that Ban had, the person that gave you your powers. However, I'd also like to tell you how me and him got to this world. It's quite the long story. Oh, I'm sure it is, Izuku would say, as he would then sit down under a tree, as Meliodas would sit down under it as well. So, it starts off, me and him were training, just out in the field, practicing against each other, sparring, when all of a sudden a strange purple portal opened up, as he would end up stopping the fight to go look at it. As all of a sudden he would end up just asking me to come towards it, and so I obliged, walking towards it, when all of a sudden he would race towards me, grabbing me, holding me down before he would push me through the portal, as he would then jump in as well. As we would then fall into a strange, mysterious forest, as we would look back towards where the portal was that we had fallen out of, to only see that it had closed in behind us. So that's pretty much how we got stuck here. That wasn't a very long story, but it's quite the interesting one. I guess it might be a sore topic for you. It kind of is, I had family back there, but, in a few thousand years you get over stuff like that. A few thousand years? Wait, what do you mean? Oh, I'll tell you later, it doesn't really matter that much. All of a sudden, we would end up cutting forward to see Izuku, Kirishima, and Toga all sitting on a bus. Mina had been allowed to come with them, just there to just guide them along, as she wasn't basically expelled from UA or just dropping out of it like many of them thought. She could still remain in UA, but she had to consider one of the other classes, mostly being one of the general classes. As she would end up taking one of those, would end up struggling intently or struggling a lot, as really what was holding her in Class 1A was her quirk and how strong it was, and how much she was just smart in hero techniques. However, without that, she wasn't very smart book-wise, and so she would struggle with the normal classes, having her quirk holding her in such of a high hero status. So with her coming along, all of them would end up getting out of the bus at a massive summer training camp, resort-looking thing, as 4 heroes dressed up as cats would all come out of nowhere, as would then end up introducing themselves as the Wild Wild Pussycats, as they would then start to explain to everyone that they are going just to be teaching them how to properly train themselves, and they're just going to be training them as hard as they possibly could, as this next couple of days were going to be as hard as possible, as they have finals in just about a week, and this is a sort of training measure so that they can get prepared for it. So as all of them would begin stretching, almost immediately after their stretching was done, they would begin a massive 5-mile run, which many of them, not being in the best of shape cardio-wise, would barely be able to complete it just by walking alone. However, they would be forced to keep on running, with Aizawa following behind them at a slow pace, and if you were to just get caught behind Aizawa and he to capture you, then that would mean you would have to take summer school for the rest of the year, and none of them wanted to have to do that, so they would all continue on running, making sure that they were not going to just get captured by Aizawa. As the running would ending, they would then begin with the specialized quirk training, with them splitting off into groups, some of them going into sparring groups. However, these sparring groups would be just withheld to only the strongest of people in the class, mostly just being Kirishima, Izuku, Todoroki, and Bakugo, just being asked if they could spar with each other, as they were the 3 strongest, and that they would just blow out everyone else in the class. So with everyone just doing these special quirk training exercises, Izuku would start to think what type of exercise he could do, just dropping down to the floor, starting to do just as much push-ups as he possibly could, not really knowing else he could manage with the staff that he had with him that he had brought. A simple 3 just typed staff with 3 sections, all being connected by chains. As Izuku would continue on his training, as finally this training would end up coming to an end for the day, where they would then be directed to a massive building, with each of them being assigned a room number, which it was mostly just like the dorms. They were assigned just a curfew where they would have to get to bed by 10, and they had 2 hours to go around either eating or just relaxing, and they could do whatever they chose. So with doing that, many of them would run around wondering what they could do, and this is where Mina would end up just coming out after going inside for a few hours after dinner, since dinner was at 6 and everyone else who had finished had to go back outside for training, she decided to go back inside to rest up, as she really just wasn't training. Oh, she was just there. As one of the cats would also be there just helping Mina with some physical therapy to hopefully get her quirk just back in check at least a little bit. There was still a small hope that her quirk could one day get back to the level that it was. However, this hope was very small, and many of them just weren't sure if anything ever would happen like that. We see all of the students sitting in just the hot tubs or hot springs, where all of this and Minetta, who had been allowed back into Class 1A since just Mina wasn't going to be able to be in Class 1A anymore, Minetta was able to move up again. So Minetta being back in Class 1A, once again, he would end up doing the same thing he did in Canon My Hero Academia, trying to climb over the wall, where Kirishima, seeing this, would activate just the fury in his eyes, where he would jump up, grabbing Minetta by the back of his head, right on one of the sticky balls, or the grape things on the back of his head. Grabbing it, it would stick to Kirishima's hand, as Kirishima would then flip down, trying to throw Minetta down, which would only cause him to go faster down to the ground, where Minetta's head would then be slammed headfirst, right down into the concrete beneath of them. After Minetta's head hit the ground, all of a sudden a loud bang would be heard. As teachers would flood into the hot springs, while just Aizawa, he would look on and wonder what was happening. What was that loud bang? He would question all of them, as they would just only point towards Kirishima with his hand stuck on Minetta's head. As Aizawa would look over towards Kirishima, asking for an explanation, to which Kirishima would oblige, saying that Minetta over there tried to climb the wall of the hot spring to see the other girls. As Aizawa would only look over towards Minetta, or just asking him if this was true. Minetta, just being speechless, was like, maybe? He would mutter out, as Aizawa would only give him a blatant look before asking him to come with me. Minetta would race towards Aizawa after putting some clothes on, as they would then turn the corner, as Aizawa would only look on towards him. For the time being, you're expelled from UA. I'll let you find a way to get back to your house. I'll give you 30 minutes to get off this property, or else you'll be escorted out by the security and be thrown into jail for the night. So, I'd get to it, Aizawa would say, just being pissed off and having enough of Minetta's crap that he's just been doing for the entire school year. Finally just saying, fine, I'll just expel him from this damn school. So, with that, we then end up seeing the next day go out basically just the exact same. Mina being there to help everyone out just by giving them suggestions on what they could possibly be doing for their quirks and training. However, during the night, all of them decided to play a game that they could play with Mina, and this game happened to be a hide-and-go-seek kind of scare-style game. Half of them would be the seekers, and half of them would be the hiders, where the hiders aren't actually hiding, they're walking around trying to not get scared by the seekers or people that are trying to scare them. So, if the night would end up going on for many, many hours, with all of them just running around, scaring each and every one of them. However, before the night could truly end, all of a sudden, a smoky just smell could be smelled throughout the air. It smelled like someone was having a massive bonfire. As many people would look up to the sky, wondering what that smell was, they would all of a sudden see a massive cloud of smoke burning through the air, rustling right on towards them. Many of them would look on closely towards it before they would end up seeing a blue glow emanating from the tree line. Izuku would end up jumping in the air to see what this was. However, he would end up seeing that the forest was on fire with a bright blue fire. Izuku would rush over, telling the teachers that the forest was on fire and that this wasn't just any ordinary fire. This was a villain's attack. Aizawa would look firmly towards Izuku, asking him if he was sure, which Izuku would nod his head. Alright, we need to find the students quickly, Aizawa would say, completely confident in whose ability to tell if this was a villain attack or not. As Aizawa would end up racing off, looking throughout the forest for all of the students. Izuku would do the same. As all of a sudden, Izuku rushing through the forest, he would turn a corner before bumping into a black-haired villain with stitches all around his face. What the hell? The villain would mutter, turning around to see Izuku staring up at him. Oh, if it isn't one of those damn heroes in training, he would say, lifting his hand up into the air, trying to burn Izuku. However, Izuku would only dodge this attack before punching the villain right in the chest. As the villain would be sent flying backwards, would end up hitting a tree before you would looking on, as he would see two people end up turning a corner, where he would end up grabbing the pink-haired girl that turned the corner, holding her into a headlock. As be holding her, Mina would be looking on towards Kirishima with pleading eyes, yelling for him to please save her. However, he could do nothing, as he was holding her hostage, making sure that Kirishima didn't take another step forward. With Kirishima not able to do anything, another villain would appear out of nowhere, wearing a mask covering their face, with Bakugo in hand, having knocked him out. As the sun, a portal would open up right there between them, as Izuku would end up feeling a sharp pain in his neck, along with Kirishima, as they would both fall down, right as Izuku was about to stop both of those villains from getting away, with Bakugo and Mina getting away into the portal. As Izuku would end up waking up with this sharp pain in his neck just finally gone, he would end up waking up with Toga staring down at him. Izuku, are you alright? She would ask. Yeah, I'm fine. Did you happen to see what that thing was that caught both me and Kirishima's neck by any chance? It looked like some type of syringe-looking thing. Oh, no. It's kind of strange you ask me that. I did see something like that flying around, dangling in the air, but that's about it. I see. They got Mina and Bakugo. They did? Wait, so they were trying to capture them? Well, that doesn't make any sense. Mina can't use her quirk. I mean, it kind of makes sense why they'd try to capture Bakugo, but... what? Izuku would lift up the still unconscious body of Kirishima before they would end up walking back towards where Aizawa and the rest of the students were. As Aizawa would end up just explaining that they would be taken back to the UA dorms right now, and that it just had to end. As Izuku and Kirishima, having just woken up, would ask, what about Mina and Bakugo? They had been captured by villains. Well, they couldn't do anything for now, they just had to find where the villains were. And so Izuku, having held on to that license, looking down at the temporary license, would know what he was going to do. As Izuku would up getting onto the bus, where they would then travel back towards the UA dorms, where it would finally end up just making it back there, where all of the other students would end up going to bed. Meliodas, who was strangely absent from this whole ordeal, saying that he had to attend business the entire time, would end up just meeting all of them up at the UA dorms and asking them why they were back so early. Izuku would end up telling Meliodas why before explaining what he wanted to do. However, he wanted to bring someone other than him along, and if he could have his temporary hero license. Meliodas would say sure before handing it to Izuku. These temporary hero licenses weren't just specialized to anyone at all, basically just saying the hero that wields this has the ability to temporarily use their quirk in battle from the dates of this to this. All Might, who was dumb enough, didn't check the dates, as Izuku's temporary hero license expired in just over a year. So with that, Izuku would end up giving it to Kirishima before looking him dead in the eyes, just saying, "Look, let's go get Mina," Izuku would say, not caring what happened to Bakugo. We cut over towards the League of Villains hideout, where they would be seen just asking just asking Bakugo if he could join the League of Villains. Bakugo would on towards them before just yelling, "No, I'll never join you villain scum. That's quite interesting. I happen to get word from the media that you had to give permanent damage to your friend Mina over there, the alien-looking thing. Yeah, did you know you gave her permanent damage to her quirk? She can't even use it anymore." Shigaraki would say as Bakugo would only stare towards her. "Well, it's her fault for being weak," he would say. First, Shigaraki would only laugh before walking towards Mina. "Well, I really don't care," as Shigaraki would place all 5 of his fingers on top of Mina's head, as he would then take Mina's quirk away from her. However, it really didn't work. Well, sort of. It took her acid quirk from her. However, the physical properties of her quirk weren't taken away. She was still pink and had pink hair. So, it would end up as in Shigaraki look at it before wondering, so I guess I got the acid part of your quirk, but not your physical abilities. That's honestly quite interesting. I'll have to ask All For One about this. He'll probably know. But that's aside the point from right now. So, Bakugo, yes or no? Final answer. I already told you, damn it, no, would say. However, right as Bakugo would utter those final words, both Izuku and Kirishima would smash in towards the League of Villains hideout, as Momo, who had overheard their plan, gave them a tracking device that she had luckily placed on one of the villains. "Mina," Kirishima would say, looking around the room before finding Mina on a chair, as he would swiftly break her restraints before picking her up. "Quickly, Kirishima, get out of here! I'll take care of these damn villains," Izuku would say as Kirishima would nod his head, jumping out of there, carrying knocked out Mina. She had gotten knocked out from the intense pain it had caused her from having her quirk taken away from her. With Mina now longer on the scene, Izuku would start to power up before racing towards Dabi, knocking him out before knocking the rest of the villains out, saving the strongest villain for last, Shigaraki. "It appears we finally meet again, Izuku. I've gotten a lot more research done on you, and I somehow found out that you're quirkless. That doesn't quite explain how you're so strong. However, I don't really care enough to ask you any questions about it. So, why don't we begin this fight? Let's begin," Shigaraki would say, racing towards Izuku, punching him right across the face, sending him flying backwards. Shigaraki had started to stockpile strength quirks, causing him to get insanely strong, having just so many of them. As Izuku being sent flying back into a building, hitting the building, would jump out of the rubble before racing on towards Shigaraki once again, punching him in the face before punching him again, causing him to stay in the same place. As Izuku would then grab Shigaraki's head, twisting him before throwing him down to the ground. As Izuku would then point his foot downwards, flying down to the ground, slamming his foot right into Shigaraki's stomach. Shigaraki would then cough out blood. He would start to power up even further. As he would stare towards Izuku, flying towards him, he would punch Izuku right in the chin. As Izuku would hear a crunch breaking his jaw, however, it would easily regenerate with ease. Seeing how strong Shigaraki truly was, he would start to go as far as he possibly could. Well, not as far as he did against Meliodas. Shigaraki was still far too weak for Izuku to manage that. However, Izuku knew if Shigaraki ever endangered anyone's lives, he'd yield from just using as much power as he could, making it look like he was just bound to lose. So with this, Izuku would continue on the offense, punching Shigaraki farther and farther back, as Shigaraki would start to feel that he was getting weaker and weaker. Sensing that his defeat was imminent, Shigaraki would look back toward wherever the bar and villain hideout was, where he would end up seeing Toga standing there watching the fight, as he would race down towards Toga, grabbing her grabbing her in a headlock, much how Dabi did to Mina. Izuku would stare towards Toga. How did you get here? Would say, it's not what it looks like, Izuku. She would mutter out, choking it out, barely being able to speak, having been choked by Shigaraki. Just as a little added bonus, I'll take away one of these, Shigaraki would say, snapping Toga's arm off. There, that's a little revenge for punching me so hard just a couple of seconds ago. And how about this one, too? And that is where part 6 of What If Deku Had Bon's Powers comes to an end. I hope you all did enjoy it, and if you did, please consider subscribing, as it really does help this channel out, and you can even be notified when the other parts of this series do end up coming out. Remember, I'm not going to be uploading for the next 3 days, and all uploads after this video are going to be 15 minutes long. I thank you all for watching, once again, and goodbye.